so much what it is now, but what it has meant over the years?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. We haven't really talked about it much because, most of these guys aren't from here. The guys that played in it last year, it was here, so they certainly understand it. I would like to think our new guys understand what a rivalry is. I would imagine they've been a part of a rivalry at some level, whether it was at their previous school or high school. We need to win a basketball game. So I'm not worried about the past or anything like that. Have great respect for it, have great respect for their program, but we need to win a basketball game and not worry, get caught up into the past and history and all things like that. It's going to be enough of a challenge going on the road in a tough environment. I don't want to cloud their heads too much with everything else.
To kind of bounce off of that, how do you, after losing three of your last four, how do you balance a sense of urgency with not panicking or anything?
Well, there has to be a sense of urgency. Every time we play, there should be urgency. We're certainly not panicked. We knew that this was a challenging 5-game slate. This will be the close of it, and maybe the most challenging one because it's on the road in a very tough environment. But we're excited about the challenge. We're excited about the opportunity. That's the way I look at it. It's an unbelievable opportunity, and we'll be ready for it.
How important is a guy like Blake in a game like this where you guys are kind of struggling a little bit and you're going into a hostile atmosphere? How important is, like you said, you called him the best player on the team in the preseason. How important is it for him to step up in these moments?
Well, he's important for us all the time. Certainly, our first true road game. He has experience, a lot of experience from different places. But we have some other guys that have experience on the road last year that played in some big moments and played well, and we need those guys to step up too. Everyone has to go up a level. That's what has to happen for us.
How has Fetty responded?
Good. He's been good. He's been good in practice.
What have you seen from him that, he only had 3 rebounds? What have you seen from him that kind of has limited him, especially in this last game?
He just has to play with more energy. That's the biggest thing. One of the things that made him really good last year was the energy that he played with. And he needs to get back to just playing with energy. That's the biggest thing, and being able to do it consistently. We can help him with that. Maybe sub him a little bit quicker so he's not playing tired. Those are some things that we can make adjustments with, but the biggest thing is just energy.
They have some roster limitations, only been going about 7 or 8 deep. How much will your depth maybe factor into this game?
I don't know. Again, we have to play better, everyone. The guys that start, the guys come off the bench. We have to play better. I think we have quality depth, but we need to play better, period, across the board. We need to coach better, play better.
Jeff, with Bub and Jalen, this is also going to be big for them in a hostile environment because a lot of, with their jobs as a guard, and Ish too, with their jobs as guards, is communicating in a loud place. That gets harder. How do you coach that to prepare for that kind of situation?
Just try to talk about it, maybe try to simulate some stuff in practice. Our huddles are going to be huge. Them getting, feedback from us in real time, breaks, out of bounds, free throws, and then them being able to communicate that with the group, that's out there with them. We have to be at a high level with that.
Do you think the changes that have taken place in college sports with realignment, the portal and everything, and how guys just aren't really around at one place for a long time anymore, do you think that kind of takes away from rivalries, like you said, where you're not sure how many guys even really understand the importance of the backyard brawl? Do you think that that's kind of taken away from it?
I think they understand the importance. I didn't mean to.
Yeah,
I think they understand the importance. I just think from what you just said, I don't know how, you know what I mean? It's not like you've been at a place for 3 years and you've played these guys and, you understand. That's what's different about college athletics, period.
right.
So I definitely think our guys understand it. They, knew about football. We played them in different sports, and it's a big deal. So they know about that, and I think it means a lot to them. But I do think with all the change in college athletics, it changes it a little bit. It feels a little bit different. I mean, I think, what do they have, like 3 guys back from last year. And so they'll have a lot of guys that are new in this as well,
Right.
just like we will. So we'll see.
Do you, I mean, as a guy who played at one of the most tradition-driven programs in college, does that kind of upset you a little bit that stuff like this isn't as meaningful anymore?
Does it upset me? I don't know if it upsets me. It's just college athletics is different now.
Mm-hmm.
It is way, way different. I'm ancient. I'm a dinosaur now. Even 10 years ago, it's very, very different. There's some things that are good about it, and there's some things that are not good about it. But it's just different. And so it doesn't upset me. It's just different.
What are the things you feel are good about it?
I think these kids have more opportunities now. I think that part of it is good. I think for the student athlete, just having more opportunities, being able to capitalize on your name, your image and likeness. I would have loved to have done that. I would have loved to have had that opportunity when I was in school. Being able to having some freedoms to do that didn't matter to me back then. I mean, I thought about it one time, but my dad talked some sense into me. But just, with that, like those are the things that make it a little bit better. There are more, my sport's very different because there are more opportunities to play basketball than there are for any other sport. We don't compete against, when we recruit or whatever, we don't just compete against West Virginia or Syracuse or Notre Dame or whomever. We're competing against the G League. We're competing against two-way contracts. We're competing against overseas. We're competing against overtime. We're competing against all these different factions. And so there are more opportunities for young people to play basketball and to, have a chance to achieve their dream. I think that's some stuff that's good. But there's some things that come along with that make college basketball, and especially coaching college basketball, a lot more different and difficult.
You mentioned your dad talking some sense into you. What do you think your dad would think of today's college basketball game?
That's a great question, because once he got out of it and went to the pros, he didn't really think about it that much, except for the team that I was coaching and when my brother was at App State. That would be interesting to think what he would think about it. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
For all the things you just mentioned previously, how much of that affects redshirting? I mean, is that now pretty much limited to somebody's injured, as opposed to maybe a developmental thing or a way to maybe preserve a year of eligibility?
Great question. Yes. Listen, you as a coach, you don't know what your roster is going to be. So back when I was, or even let's take me as a player out. When I first started at VCU, you could kind of build a roster. Like my first year there, they used to have a rule, the 8-5 rule. So when I took over as head coach, my first year I only had 8 scholarship players because we were only allowed to sign 3. Like that was a stupid rule, but you had to go through that. But you were able to you were able to build. You had a freshman that eventually became a senior because he knew that, if he transferred, he was going to have to sit. They didn't want to do that. Also, I don't think guys were that much of a hurry to get out. They fought through stuff a little bit. If you didn't play as a freshman, maybe you'd stay and work harder and understand you have to work harder. You have to do things a little bit different. That's out the window now. And so you don't know. That's what makes it more difficult. So whether you decide to redshirt, even if you redshirt a kid and he's hurt, he could transfer. Like if you sign someone, and he thinks that he won't play, or someone is calling his coach or his AAU coach or his parents and telling him, hey, I have more for you over here. If you decide to leave, I can give you this or give you this or whatever. So it's different. It's very, very different. I think it's harder to build a team. I think it's harder with chemistry, to develop that. I think that's why you see some teams. If you look around college basketball right now, there's some teams that are struggling early because you're just trying to figure out who you are. As much as you try to do that in the summer when you get your team, some people aren't even getting their teams until August. late August when school starts. And so you see a lot of people around the country right now think just trying to figure out who are we. And I think you'll see teams continue to get better and better as the season goes on, as you figure that out. But it's just a different challenge of coaching right now.
How do you feel? What do you think is the biggest hurdle in trying to get to that as a coach, understanding that challenge when you grew up in a different era where it's a whole new culture you have to embrace?
You have to embrace it. You have to understand this is the way that it is. You can sit back and you can moan about the days of yesteryear or how it was when I played or when I first started coaching or things like that. You have to be able to adapt and adjust. You have to. And then you have to have some patience because you know it's going to take a little bit of time.
You don't have time to have patience with, say, freshmen or guys that may be a little bit physically underdeveloped, like the Twins last year, or the freshman guards this year. Like, does it create a sense of urgency to maybe accelerate their progress, to get them ready faster than you maybe typically would have?
It does, but you also know that it's going to take time. So there has to be patience there. There has to be grace. There has to be all of those things. And you have to understand it's a process. Like, very few freshmen are able to come in and be like consistently really good. Very few. I don't care if you're the number one guy in the country coming in. Like, it's different. It's an adjustment. In some ways, right now, the last few years, it could maybe be a little bit more difficult because guys are older. Like, you got 5th, 6th year guys now. I mean, we had 4 of them last year. It's very different as an 18-year-old playing against a 24 and 25-year-old guy. I don't care how good you are as an 18-year-old, it's different. And a guy that has a lot of experience. And so you have to understand as a coach, it's going to take time. I started as a freshman. Things had to be accelerated. My coach was really, really hard on me because I didn't know this until after the season, but he told my parents when they brought me up, I'm going to be hard on them because I need them. I wish they would have told me that earlier because I was getting yelled at every day and things like that. But, I was very fortunate. I had some great upperclassmen that really helped me. A lot of these places don't have upperclassmen, especially guys that have been there. Or if you've been there, have you won? What have you done? That's why some of the places like Purdue, like Virginia, that are able to maintain guys and they have a culture where it's passed down. A lot of these places don't have that anymore, but you look at some of the, like Armando Bacot is in his 5th year of college. Wow. And he's a really good player. RJ Davis is a 4th year senior. You look at the team we just played, Joe Girard, Chase Hunter, 2 5th-year guys. PJ Hall's a really good player, an outstanding player as a senior. That's rare. And if you have that and some continuity with it, then you have a chance to be really, really good.
Given that you've played in some tournaments, the ACC, SEC game, the first conference game, how much has that maybe accelerated on its own for the freshman guards?
Yeah, it's accelerated a lot. And we knew it coming into it, as we put together the schedule, we tried to do it, okay, how do we get better? All right. Last year, I thought how we did it was maybe a little bit difficult for that team just because we played UT Martin and we had those 3 high majors in a row. And it really knocked us back. And it took us a little bit to get back confidence and to, figure out who we were. This year we started, I thought we went up every game from A&T to Binghamton to Florida Gulf Coast to Jacksonville. And then you went up to whether it's the championship division, whatever it is. And that's what these 5 games, this one will be the close. Not that the rest of them won't be, but it's just a little bit different level. So we've learned a lot. And one of the biggest things is that in order to become the team that we want to be, everything we do has to be done with more urgency. It has to be done more consistent. We have to do it harder. We have to fight a little bit more. You have to give a little bit more because that's what's required to be really good.
Last year, like late in the season, we were talking about the ACC network and the needing of the conference to promote itself more and help with that, especially when late in the season you got to try and make a tournament. You see this year with college football. I know it's not your sport, but the situation with Florida State. Were there any discussions that you had with maybe the conference, or any discussions that you were aware of about trying to change tone, the message and tone that comes from the ACC to maybe promote it more to help it?
Yeah, we talked as men's basketball head coaches in our league meetings back in May. I think that's when they were, just about how do we help the conference. Like, I don't think there's any way in the world that Clemson should have been out the NCAA tournament last year. If you win 14 games in the ACC, you should be in. How many times can you win 14 games in a conference, especially in a conference like the ACC? And so, what can we do? How can we promote it? What can we do as coaches, as programs, as the leader of programs? Hopefully the fact that obviously the SEC in men's basketball is very respected. I think they had 7 or 8 teams in the tournament last year. The fact that we split, this year with the challenge, hopefully that helps us in the long run. But I do think some of the people at the network have done a better job of trying to promote our league and trying to talk about how good our league is, the teams are, the players are, the coaches. I think in football, if I remember right, I think the network went around to the different programs and things like that. Hopefully that's something in the future, in the preseason, that the network can do for us, for men's basketball to go out and do that. But I think it's gotten a little bit better.
Are there channels or relationships that you guys can help bridge for the conference, like as far as just guys that in national media, just in other networks that can help in that situation, like resources that you guys can provide?
Obviously everyone has their own individual relationships with, whether it's national media, whether it's TV people or whomever. There's some things that we have to do as a like we have to win in the non-conference. We have to do that so we can help ourselves with that. And we talked about that. We have to, that certainly helps. Look, I'd be lying to you if I said I understand all this net stuff and how they do these things, and things like that. But look, people are going to there's a narrative that's been out there. I don't know if it's because Coach is gone, because Coach Williams is gone, now Coach Boeheim is gone. There's a narrative that if Duke or Carolina aren't what they normally have always been, then that maybe the league is down. I don't think that's the case. Miami was really good last year. I thought we were pretty good last year. Obviously Miami, they got to the Final Four, so 2 years in a row, Elite Eight, Final Four. Hopefully people are understanding that our league is more than just Duke and Carolina.
As we hit kind of the quarter, third way point of the season, have you gotten a chance to look around the ACC, and if so, what do you kind of notice about the league?
To be honest with you, I haven't. I just looked at I've seen some of the scores, but I've been so locked into us. I haven't really watched a lot of college basketball, so I don't know. I just see some of these scores and see some of these quote-unquote upsets. And part of me is a little bit surprised, but then there's another part that's not, because it's different now. There's way more parity, and it's just different.